I still remember the exact moment I realized it had happened. It was a crisp Tuesday morning, the kind where the city feels hazy with possibility and just enough frost to make your breath visible in the sunlight. I dragged myself into the office at 7:45 a.m., armed with strong coffee and the final prototype of Automatch, my matchmaking, for collaborators platform, which I'd been building in secret for the past 8 months. I was supposed to demo it to my boss Grant Keller at 8 o'clock sharp, my big chance to convince him to back me with the company's seed fund. At 7:59, I hit play on the presentation and leaned back in my chair to watch the screen warm up. Automatch would revolutionize how our company paired freelance developers with project managers, an AI-driven compatibility algorithm, a sleek UX, gamified progress tracking. It was mine, born of late nights and lonely whiteboard sessions at home, fueled by equal parts ambition and sheer stubbornness. Then the tab refreshed without warning, and there it was, a splash page bearing Keller Tech launches CollabSync trademark. My heart stalled. CollabSync trademark? That was Automatch. The same lavender and indigo color scheme, the same lightning bolt logo, the same tagline, find your perfect project partner in seconds. My code repository was private. The mock-ups on my local drive, nobody else had seen them. I staggered to my feet, legs shaking. The conference room door burst open and in marched Grant, dressed sharp as always, tie knotted just so, smile wide. "Morning team," he called out, eyes scanning the faces of our 6-person product group. "Exciting news, CollabSync team is live on the portal. Beta rollout starts today." Someone clapped. Jenna from UX nodded vigorously. Eric, our operations guy, gave a thumbs up. All of them looked at me like I was the VIP guest, except nobody said a word. My boss had just announced my brainchild as Keller Tech's latest innovation, and nobody else seemed to think that was odd. "Grant," I began, voice tight. "Alex," he chirped, cutting me off mid-sip of his latte. "Glad you're here. We're counting on you to troubleshoot any bugs this morning." I opened my mouth, but the words tangled in my throat. "But, CollabSync team. It's my project." He gave me a curious tilt of the head. "Your project?" I felt my cheeks burn. It's my idea. I've been working on Automatch." "Automatch," he repeated, eyebrows raised. Sounded like a fun side gig, but when I pitched it to the exec team last week, they asked if I could fast-track it under our brand. I thought it was a no-brainer. "Congratulations," he slapped me on the shoulder. Ready to debug? The room erupted into chatter. "Great work, Grant. When can we invite partners? This is going to blow the competition out of the water." And there I stood, mute, as if I'd wandered into the wrong movie. Asterisk, I retreated to my desk in a daze. My coffee went cold. My laptop sat there blinking innocently, the code untouched. I felt a migraine coming on. 8 months of nights crammed above my bed, burying my friends in my living room, with my vision board, promising them this would be big one day. And now it was Grant's big win. My first instinct was fury, white hot, burn the hallway down fury. But I forced myself to breathe. If I yanked my code off the server in a rage, that only proved I was guilty of working unauthorized projects. Better to play it cool, gather evidence. So I opened the web inspector and peeked at the CollabSync trademark repository. Sure enough, they'd forked my Automatch code wholesale. Same class names, same variable structure, same inline comments. They'd even lifted my early-stage test files. My hands shook as I documented everything. Screenshots, Git diffs, timestamp logs. I knew if I went to HR right now, they'd investigate a policy violation on my side. I'd admit to stealth coding a product, grounds for termination. No, I needed a plan that put me in control. That afternoon, Grant invited me into his office for a quick sync. His corner suite overlooked the river. Sunlight glinted off the skyscrapers in the distance. He leaned over the desk, peering at the bug report I'd submitted. "Alex, you're killing it. We launch in 2 days, but I want you ready for pilot feedback. Think you can have a patch by tomorrow morning?" I swallowed. "Actually, Grant, I noticed something odd. The CollabSync trademark code includes some debug hooks that reference match score v1. That's an outdated branch I deleted from my local repo in March. The naming convention stopped at v0. 8. Did the dev team fork from an old copy?" His face flickered. "Oh, that's DevOps. They pulled from the staging server. Must have had an old merge." I nodded solemnly. "Right, I'll clean it up." He handed me a fresh latte. "Good man, you're a lifesaver." He left. Door clicking shut. Inside, I stifled a laugh. He didn't know I'd planted that match score v1 function deliberately. 6 weeks ago, when I was testing compatibility scores, I'd hidden a unique callback, if score equals sign, equals sign, equals sign. 42 Krieger audit, and memed ironically inspired by Hitchhiker's Guide. If any user got exactly 42 points, an internal audit would fire off an email to the CTO. Of course, real users would never hit exactly 42 on a continuous scale. But CollabSync's testing pipeline seemed to quantize scores to the nearest integer. Funny how that worked out. Now, I had the evidence and the mechanism to expose them publicly, if I chose. But there was a better play. I would bait Grant into activating that trap, catch him in the act, and then negotiate from a position of strength. I'd make sure there was no dispute that automatch was mine, then demand recognition and my own equity share before flipping the script. That evening, I left the office late, ducking into a 24-hour coffee shop for clandestine coding. I patched the original automatch repo to include a simulated match, score equals sign, 42 test suite, wired to record server logs. Then, I slipped a disguised call into the production code, small enough that KellerTech's DevOps wouldn't notice, but enough to trigger my secret audit if anyone used that scoring path. I knew from internal metrics that about 0.05% of match queries, rounded to 42, likely a handful out of the pilot user base. All I had to do was sit back and wait for someone on Grant's team to hit that threshold. My phone buzzed, a message from Jenna in UX. Testers are complaining, "Who is this Sandra Riley?" The system matched me to someone named Riley, not my coworker Ryan. Weird, that was the nudge I needed. Riley, the name came straight from my local test set. Sandra Riley. I'd seeded that dummy profile to catch code thieves long ago. Now, CollabSync trademark was dutifully suggesting Stacy Riley for collaboration. Evidence of my rake-through of my personal test data. I replied coolly, "Odd, I'll look at the logs tomorrow." Back home, I lay awake listening to the city hum. My plan felt both exhilarating and monstrous. I'd always believed in playing fair, yet here I was, setting a legal and moral trap. But Grant had stolen from me. He'd erased my ownership. This was justice. And soon he wouldn't know what hit him. The next morning, Grant's face was ashen when he called me in again. He'd received a cryptic email titled AG Alert Code Integrity Violation, flagged by my hidden trigger audit function. The email had copied the CTO, the head of security, and HR. The logs showed calls to match score equals sign, 42 from CollabSync trademark production endpoints. And then there was my signature, my name, my company email, embedded in the alert footer. Grant's office was deathly silent as I stepped inside. His usual swagger gone, replaced with panic. "Alex," he blurted, voice trembling, "this email, this alert, why is it from you?" I crossed my arms. I noticed some discrepancies in the CollabSync trademark code, debug hooks that referenced my retired branches and test data. Someone merged from my private repo. I triggered an integrity check last night. It caught them. He ran a hand through his hair. "Look, we can spin this. You and I can tell them it was a shared library, something the team used. We can put your name on the project, make you part of the launch." I tilted my head. "You think that's enough?" Grant's eyes darted to the door. "Please, Alex, I need you on my side. I'll give you whatever you want." I let the words hang for a moment, then leaned forward. "I want a formal recognition of my authorship in the board meeting next week. I want 10% equity in CollabSync Testa, vested immediately, and I want my own team. Starting now." He looked so pale I thought he might pass out. "That's a lot," I smiled. "It's the bare minimum." He nodded slowly. "Okay, agreed. You'll get it. I just need you not to forward that audit email to anyone else." I laughed softly. Grant, once that email hit the CTO's inbox, it was out of my hands, but I promised to keep it there. No forwarding. He exhaled, relief flooding his features. "Thank you." I stood, buttoning my blazer. "Don't thank me next week when I'm credited as CollabSync Testa's founder." He managed a shaky smile. "I will." As I walked out of his office, I felt the surge of victory pulsing in my veins. I turned the tables on the man who thought he could profit off my hard work. I had documented proof, leverage, and the respect, finally, of the executive team. Back at my desk, I opened my own AutoMatch prototype. The code gleamed on the screen like a promise kept. I clicked through the clean interface, watching the AI suggest perfect pairings based on hidden factors only I knew. And I felt something rare in the corporate world. I felt restored. Moments later, Jenna popped her head over the partition. Congratulations, Alex. Heard you got a big piece of CollabSync trademark. I grinned. Just doing my job. She leaned closer. Want to grab lunch? Your treat. Remember how you said we'd celebrate today? I paused, recalling the original plan. I'd treat the team to sandwiches and iced lattes as thanks for helping me beta test AutoMatch. Now it was a celebration of something bigger, justice served. Absolutely, I said. Let's go. I closed my laptop, gathered my bag, and headed for the elevator, half expecting Grant to burst out behind me, hat in hand, begging forgiveness. But he stayed behind, buried in emails, his world upended by a trap he never saw coming. As the doors slid shut, I let out a slow breath. My startup idea had been stolen. But I'd stolen it back on my terms, and this was only part one. Next week, when the board hears my story, they'll learn exactly why you should never mess with an inventor who left a trap in their own code. The morning of the board meeting dawned gray and drizzling, the city skyline blurred behind a veil of light rain. I steeled myself as I rode the elevator up to the 15th floor, this time not as an unwitting victim, but as a recognized founder. My reflection in the polished door mirrored a woman both triumphant and wary. The entire executive suite awaited me. When the doors opened, I stepped into the conference room with the calm of someone who'd already won. Around the long table sat 10 stern faces, the CEO, CFO Patel, the head of HR, and a contingent of senior directors. At the head, in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, stood Grant Keller, my ex-boss, now my uneasy ally, fingers drumming the tabletop. Alex, thank you for coming, the CEO said in measured tones. We've been reviewing your request. She gestured to the projector, where the CollabSync trademark logo flickered beside a new title slide, Founder's Presentation, AutoMatch Integration. I smiled and flipped open my laptop. Good morning, I'll keep it concise. The CTO, a lean man named Rosario, leaned forward. Let's hear it. I cleared my throat. When I joined Keller Tech 18 months ago, I saw an opportunity to streamline our freelance collaborations. AutoMatch was the result, an AI-driven platform that optimizes partner pairing based on skills, project scope, and work style profiles. You saw the demo last fall, unfortunately, without credit. A ripple of unease passed through the room. I had their attention. After the CollabSync trademark announcement, I continued. I discovered my code had been used without attribution. Rather than litigate, I chose to prove my authorship through an integrity audit, a mechanism I built specifically to safeguard my IP. That audit triggered a chain of events that led us here today. Grant swallowed audibly. I pressed play on a slide deck showing side-by-side code snippets, my AutoMatch classes next to CollabSync trademark files, matching line for line. Then came the email alert, CCing the CTO and HR. As you can see, I said, pointing to the time-stamped email, this isn't conjecture, it's documented proof. The CTO's jaw clenched, Patel's face drained of color. I let the silence stretch before continuing. I've proposed 3 items: formal attribution, as AutoMatch's founder, 10% equity in the CollabSync trademark product line, and an independent team under my leadership to develop the next-generation AutoMatch features. The CEO folded her hands and studied me. And your conditions? She asked quietly. I met her gaze. Mutual respect and recognition. I believe in Keller Tech's vision, and I want to contribute, a fair partnership, not a subordinate role. She glanced at Patel, who gave a reluctant nod. We agree, she said finally. You shall be acknowledged as AutoMatch's creator. 10% equity will be granted, vesting immediately. You will have your own team, 3 developers and a product manager. A collective exhale filled the room. Grant slumped forward as if the weight had left him. Congratulations, Alex, he said, voice rough. You've earned it. I allowed myself a small smile. Thank you. Later that afternoon, I stood before my new team. Jenna, Eric, and 2 developers I'd handpicked, Maya, an ML specialist, and Tony, a UX whiz. We convened in the bright huddle room, whiteboards fresh, coffee brewing. All right, I said, heart pounding. This is our chance to build something extraordinary. Let's talk roadmap. As ideas flew, dynamic dashboards, peer review loops, predictive analytics. I felt an electric thrill. This was my vision. now with resources and support. I glanced at Jenna, whose eyes shone. Ready to kick off? Absolutely, she grinned. Let's do this. I sat down at my laptop, fingers poised. Then my phone buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. Be careful. They'll try to take it back. Liam. My chest tightened. I remembered Liam Maxwell, the client who'd tipped me off about MarketWave's corruption. Though I'd severed ties, we'd stayed in touch. He'd warned me that corporate sharks rarely stay satiated. I slipped the phone into my pocket and refocused. First sprint, I told the team. We solidify the core matching algorithm and launch a private beta with trusted users. They nodded. Let's make history, Maya said. That evening, rain pattered against my apartment windows. I'd intended to relax, but thoughts clustered. How long before Kellertech tried to renegotiate? Would the board accept this new framework, or would legal loopholes emerge? I poured myself a glass of wine and dialed Liam. Good timing, he said. I knew you'd land well, but I wanted to make sure they don't undermine you. I appreciate it, I said, swirling my glass. How do you suggest I safeguard my position? He paused. You need an irrevocable agreement, a founder's contract that quashes any future issues. And consider trademarking Automatch and CollabSync trademark co-branding terms. If they use anything derivative, you have grounds. I exhaled. Right. I'll schedule a call with my lawyer this week. Liam chuckled. You're on your way, Alex. Remember, I've got your back. I closed my eyes, savoring the warmth of an ally in the corporate tempest. 2 weeks later, the private beta launched. Invitations went to select partners, startups, freelancers, agile teams. Feedback rolled in. Users loved the intuitive interface, the chemistry scores, the gamified progress milestones. I watched the analytics dashboard as engagement spiked by 35% over 3 days. Amidst the celebration, an email from HR popped up. Update on CollabSync trademark license agreement. My heart thudded. It was a revised version removing explicit mention of Automatch's authorship, an attempt to revert my recognition. My smile faltered. They were testing the waters. I immediately forwarded it to the CEO, CCing Patel and HR, with a note, this deviates from our board agreement. Please advise. Then I called the lawyer. By tomorrow morning, they'd rolled back the change, reaffirming my title and equity. The message was unequivocal. I was not to be trifled with. That weekend, the city air smelled of rain-washed streets and jasmine. I met Liam at the Riverside Cafe, where we'd first discussed MarketWave's corruption. He raised a cup of espresso. You did it, he said, pride in his eyes. Equity, team, IP secured. I smiled. Thanks to your heads up, I stayed vigilant. He set his cup down. I've got one more tip. Consider spinning off Automatch as its own entity under Kellertech's incubator. You'd have greater autonomy and potentially more funding. I nodded, intrigued. That could work. I'll propose that at the next board meeting. He reached across the table. To new beginnings, Alex. I clasped his hand. To new beginnings. Monday arrived crisp and clear. With my team in tow, I presented to the board a proposal, Automatch Inc., a Kellertech subsidiary, with independent governance, its own P&L, and the freedom to seek external partnerships. I outlined projections, market size, revenue models, enterprise licenses. They listened, scribbling notes. When I'd finished, the CEO leaned back. This is ambitious, but with your track record and our equity alignment, I think it's viable. Patel nodded. We approve. Automatch Inc. is a go. The room erupted in muted applause. As I gathered my materials, Grant caught my eye and gave a wink, a rare gesture of camaraderie. We'd come full circle, from betrayer and betrayed, to partners in innovation. That evening, back at home, I sank onto the sofa with a glass of champagne. Jenna's text buzzed, "Congrats, founder. Drinks tomorrow." I smiled and typed back. You bet. My phone lit up with messages. Maya with a celebratory gif, Tony sharing a mock-up for the new Automatch logo. Eric scheduling our first sprint planning. The desk beside me held stacks of legal paperwork and stock certificates, glinting in the lamplight. I closed my eyes and thought of the trap I'd left in the code, the boardroom confrontation, the whirlwind of negotiations, and the birth of Automatch Inc. What had started as a stealth side project had become a legitimate enterprise, powered by the very platform Grant had tried to commandeer. Tomorrow, I'd step into my new office, my own at the incubator space on the 21st floor. I'd build a team that valued integrity as much as innovation, and I'd prove that ideas, once set free by a determined creator, could not be caged by corporate machinations. As I poured the last of my champagne, I whispered to the empty room, "Here's to the future, built on trust, fueled by ambition, and protected by my code." And with that, I raised my glass to the rain-cleansed city beyond my window, ready for the next chapter in a story that began with betrayal but blossomed into triumph.